Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Roti. I'm joined alongside my co-host, London Beth. I don't know why I act like he's right next to me by doing my hand motions, but he is in Wisconsin. I am in Chicago. And today we are going to be hating on the Chicago Bears and a lot of Russell Wilson news coming out. I would also like to apologize that I called Russell Wilson Russell Westbrook. Thank you for catching my mistake. Rookie mistake won't happen again. But we have a lot to hit on because Russell Wilson, a lot of weird hints, a lot of weird drops, London. Things are going on. The turtleneck's out because you have a lot to say about this. But here's another big question that I think a lot of people need to start asking themselves. And I know we have a little bit of disagreement on it, and I want everyone to hear about it. Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson? If the Bears are supposedly willing to give up a boatload of assets that includes first-round picks, second-round picks, star talent, you name it, the Bears are willing to trade the farm and then the rest of the organization pretty much at this point to get Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. And today we're going to break it down. I'm going to let you start off. I'm going to say a few things, London, and I'm going to let you hit it off on who you would rather go for. So Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, here's the breakdown. Which quarterback makes more sense? Russell Wilson's contract runs through 2023. He will be 35 years old at the end of this contract. You have quarterbacks playing up until their 40s. Look at Tom Brady signing another contract extension at 41 years old with the Bucs. So I'm not saying that 35 is the end of his career. Players are able to stay around longer. Health is a lot different than it used to be. But put that into factor. He's going to be 35 years old when he's done. In 2021, his cap hit will be $32 million. In 2022, his cap hit will be $37 million. And in 2023, the final year of the contract, it'll be $39 million. A lot of money. That's quarterback money. The cap's going to go up. That's great. It's not that much different. The Bears get used to what they're dealing with. But that's Russell Wilson's contract. Let's go to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's contract runs through 2025. His first year, though, is not that bad. A $10.5 million cap hit. It's next year in 2022 that it goes up to $32 million. In 2023, it goes back down to $20 million because he's going to take a $17 million roster bonus. Very well put out contract for cap. Much better contract than Wilson's. And then $32 million in 2024, 2025. London, if you were, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, the McCaskies, who are you going with that makes more sense to give up the farm for?
Yeah. Nick, I know we disagreed on this, and before off air, we were texting back and forth about the topic that we were going to talk about. And I know we were, really hitting on the whole Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, a lot of hype, very excited about it because it's the first time I think since maybe Jay Cutler that, the Bears are finally getting some quarterback hype, which is great for the organization, great for the city, the whole 9 yards. I'm still sticking with Russell Wilson. I know Deshaun Watson's contract is better, and that was a huge kudos to the Houston Texans on how they broke that down, especially with, the $17 million bonus in 2023, and it drops it down to like $20 million. That's really, really good. I mean, it's an awesome contract. It's going to be great for a team like, I don't know, the Miami Dolphins or the Jets to take on. But the biggest thing that I'm looking at is Russell Wilson is more of a proven winner. Okay. He's great in the playoffs. He, I think, fits our team a tad bit better. And also on top of that, the Chicago Bears, honestly, again, since Jay Cutler and even before that, don't pay quarterbacks. We haven't needed to. We haven't in general. It's time. I think it's time we get online with all the really, really good franchises in the AFC and the NFC and just pay the big money. Pay the big money so we can win the big games. And that's what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The Bears have never paid big money. I mean, they paid Mike Glennon big money for a quarterback like him. Huge mistake. Gave up a lot of assets for Mitch Trubisky. Huge mistake. Pace is not proven with the quarterback. I mean, Nick Foles. It's just not working out. This is going to save him and Nagy's job. And I know everyone's been like, this is all we hear. This is saving their jobs. Everything's on the table. But you're right. The Bears need to go in and actually pay the right guy quarterback money. They paid Khalil Mack quarterback money. It's okay working out, but the guy is playing with a strained back every game because he's not only carrying the team on his back, he's getting triple teamed. It's too much for a player like him. You need to put some heat on the offense, make that happen so the defense doesn't have to worry as much and play as much and, design things out. I know we have a new defensive coordinator. That's great. I respect that you're staying on the Russell Wilson train. He is a proven winner. I mean, Super Bowl ring under his hand. on it. He's got a Super Bowl ring on his hand. Unfortunately, I don't think it was his fault. The goal line interception against the Patriots, I don't think that was his fault. That was a Pete Carroll move. I think that I would go with Deshaun Watson. And this is where, I don't mind Russell Wilson. Great quarterback. Either or, I'm happy with either or quarterback. But in regards to how the Bears are set up with their cap over the next 3 to 4 years, it's going to be hard to surround a guy like Russell Wilson with absolute talent. You go out and get Deshaun Watson, you're still able to keep guys like Allen Robinson. You're still able to keep, unless he obviously gets traded to Houston, which I feel like that's just totally unfair to Allen Robinson to go from the Jags to the Bears to the Texans. Unfair for a guy like him with his potential.
Yeah,
but it's business. Everything's a business here. It makes more sense cap wise. Who knows? Like they can say whatever they want about cap numbers in the next couple of years, and then Goodell could drop another Easter egg and be like, oh, never mind, we're gonna keep it pretty much the same, or we're only gonna give you a couple million more. Russell Wilson, what do you think Russell Wilson is better at than Deshaun Watson? Take away experience from a skill level, what is Russell Wilson better at than Deshaun Watson?
I mean, if you take away the skill level and just like knowing the game, being around it more, proven winner, all that kind of stuff, if you take that away and just break down the physical tape, the biggest things that I don't like about Deshaun Watson in the NFL, and again, I'm blaming this on the Houston Texans, not on Deshaun Watson, but because Deshaun Watson had to play like this for so many years already in the NFL, I think it's going to be somewhat ingrained into his mode, into his body, is that Deshaun Watson runs at the last possible second.
Right.
Okay, he doesn't want to run. He will make those circus throws like, that Patrick Mahomes gets like number one plays on ESPN, but Russell Wilson's been doing it for gosh knows how long.
Right.
He will wait to the last possible second. And honestly, he only really runs on those given like, hey, 3rd and 5s, he gets 15 yards. You don't design runs for him. He just can run and can scramble around and, move around in the pocket and out of the pocket and stuff. Deshaun Watson has been running for his life since he's become a Houston Texan, has been absolutely running for his life. And I don't think that him going to a different team, maybe a better offensive line, more stable stuff, is going to take that out. Because honestly, even when he was at Clemson, I thought he had a decent offensive line. And he still, when he played against the Bamas of the world and the better teams, yes, he beat them. He still looked like he was running around to save his life. I don't want that as my quarterback right now. Right. I think, again, like we spoke about in the last one, we're a sleeping giant. We're literally a quarterback away from being a very, very, very good team. Mm-hmm. I would rather bring in someone with more experience, someone who can be a huge locker room asset to a team that honestly, outside of, like we talked about, we lost Kyle Long, who was a big locker room guy. We lost, we lost a few other ones. Akeem Hicks is probably that big locker room like leader right now. And honestly, he might, with all the stuff going on with him unfollowing and getting rid of his Portillo's accounts, he might be getting traded or let go to clear up cap space. And so I think Russell Wilson is a better locker room presence. I think he's a better leader. I think, again, if you take away, the proven winning and the playoff record and all that kind of stuff, he just plays the game like a scrambling quarterback, but in the way that you should, where it's run is like the 4th thing on his list. It's not the number one thing because I'm running for my life.
Right. No, totally fair. And I think that you're very right that in regards to Russell Wilson has never had an offensive line. I mean, maybe the Super Bowl years, he had a decent line. And, Bears fans at the beginning of the season, oh, our line sucks. Oh, our line's horrible. But in reality, it was just because the coaching staff was trying to mix up who's the best pieces to put together. Whitehair is not a center. He is a guard. Put him at guard. His grading went up from 60, I think it was 67 at center to a 90. Mm-hmm. You're missing James Daniels, who was a very good underrated guard in the NFL. You throw in Sam Mustipher, who played alongside Quentin Nelson at Notre Dame, one of the best lineman schools, and personally, in my opinion, in the nation, for sure in the Midwest. Yeah, you already have those 3 right there. You have Leno, who picked it up at the second half of the season, and he was going against guys like J.J. Watt. He was going against decent or once elite defensive ends, and he was doing his job. That's all you can ask for, right? And the right side, Massey was out most of the season. I believe it was Alex Bars at right tackle for a while. He did what he had to do. But you give either one of these guys a line, they're going to be good quarterbacks. The one thing that just makes me nervous is who's going to work better in Nagy's system. You have a young guy in Deshaun Watson who's still willing to learn, but then you have a guy in Russell Wilson who, of course, is willing to learn. I mean, he's a pro, he's a professional, but sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And he's going to walk in there, and I'm afraid that there's already going to be that, he's never spoke highly of Nagy, if you notice that. He's never spoke highly of Nagy. He's talked highly of Jimmy Graham. He's talked highly of the offensive line. He's talked highly of the defense. But from a coaching perspective, I've never heard him officially say, like, I love what Matt Nagy's doing over there in Chicago. There might have been one report about it, but that's one report. When you hear a consistent report, it's much more, likely that it's true. But you hear one report.
I think that's so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I think that's really good. And why Russell Wilson will come to Chicago, because he's been playing under the Pete Carroll shadow for a long time. And he's been having to do what Pete Carroll wants and play how Pete Carroll wants. And he hasn't, I think he's looking for someone kind of like Tom Brady, with Arian down in Tampa, where he just said, hey, after about week 3, he was just like, Tom, do your thing, get us to a Super Bowl, and that's all I care about. And I think Russell saw that and was like, that's what I want. I don't want Pete Carroll who's saying, no, we're going to ground and pound. We're not going to spend picks on offensive line. This is what you're going to do because I'm Pete Carroll and you're just Russell Wilson. And so honestly, I think, not saying anything about Matt Nagy and all that kind of stuff, I think that's actually almost a plus for Chicago of him wanting to come here more, because he's like, listen, it's not an over demanding head coach who's going to overshadow me. It's not a, GM or anything like that that's going to overshadow me like a John Elway or somebody like that. This is a team where I can come to Chicago. I can build my brand to a huge, ginormous stratosphere that I can't even think of. And he won't have the Pete Carroll, like, kind of looking over his shoulder as like the father. So, I mean, could be wrong, but I take that would be the reason why.
Listen, I think that I think you hit the nail on the head, and I hope that's the case, especially like a Tom Brady kind of deal where, Tom walks in with his establishment, is like, this is my team now. Like, you take orders from me. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. Hopefully, if Russell Wilson comes into Chicago. And, you raise a really good point. I still stand by, I prefer Deshaun Watson if we're giving up assets. Mm-hmm. But Deshaun Watson might get bullied around a little bit still, even though he's, sticking it to Houston saying, I'm out. I don't care how bad you guys want me to stay. I'm leaving. Like, I'm not going to play for you ever again. Mm-hmm. I feel like Nagy would still find a way to kind of like, hey, listen to me. I think you would actually make my system work. Mm-hmm. But, let Bill Lazor do that. Let Bill Lazor be the offensive coordinator that we saw he for sure did 3 games. He for sure
big fan of Bill Lazor, honestly. Very underrated offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind him. I thought he did a fine job. You could tell that Nagy took over at the end, though. He wanted that big highlight, and they'd be like, yeah, we switched to me. Like, I won the games. You scored 9 points in a playoff game and 6 of them came in the last second as a joke. So overall, I mean, there's just a lot to go with from a GM perspective, from, a building for the future, especially if you're giving up. I mean, the Bears could give up 4 first-round picks for this guy, which is absurd, in my opinion. I think 3 is the max I would give up. But your next 4 years are going to have no first-round draft pick. And then what if Russell Wilson doesn't want to re-sign in 3 years? You don't have a first-round draft pick when he's done and he leaves, and you don't have a first-round pick. You're done. Like, how you're not going to be able to get a quarterback in the first round unless you trade up, giving up more assets. It could be. I mean, it is a total Hail Mary going with Russell Wilson. Deshaun Watson, you have a longer contract. You have a younger guy, kind of gel with the newer generation coming in. But who knows? I mean, definitely it's all Russell Wilson right now. That's all everyone's talking about. And again, if we get Russell Wilson, I'm streaking. Like, that's just what's happening. It's what's going to happen.
Okay, Nick, I got a question for you. I saw this on Twitter earlier, and honestly, I really agree with it, because a lot of Chicago fans, since the end of the season through halfway through the season, have been just bashing Ryan Pace. And I honestly don't understand why. I think he's a good GM. I don't understand this, but maybe he messed up with the Trubisky. Maybe he's not a great first round pick GM, but honestly, how he picks in the later rounds, I think is impressive than the first round. Because I think first round picks, honestly, I would give up 5. I know Colin Cowherd talked about giving up 3 to 5 first round picks for Russell Wilson. I would do it because I don't value first round picks over a franchise quarterback. But again, that's for another story. What do you think if Ryan Pace lands Russell Wilson, barring whatever the trade is, doesn't matter, just hypothetically goes through, he then has landed Khalil Mack, arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, and Russell Wilson since being in Chicago. Would you, all the other Chicago fans who hated on him, would you think that they were dead wrong because of that and start to feel like, hey, I mean, this man kind of does know what he's doing. He kind of does.
Listen, I've always liked Ryan Pace. I think he's made mistakes. I mean, again, a lot of GMs don't become true GMs until their second or third GM job. You know, they bounce around. Ryan Pace was a very young GM when he got the job. He came from a great organization in the Saints, and he had a dumpster fire when he came to this team. It was a mess. The cap was a mess. The head coaching was a mess. He cleaned house, and he built a team from an organization that, had Drew Brees, very successful. It takes a long time. And the Bears obviously had an expectation. I want to win now. Like, this guy's going to do it. And Bears fans are tired. It's been 30 years since we've won a Super Bowl. Oh, more than 30 years since we've won a Super Bowl. And I think he is a good GM. I don't care what people say. I know that because of the NFL and how things are, he's going to get the boot if it's a bad season. There's no doubt about it. He will get the boot. There needs to be fresh blood. But again, like you said, he won the Oakland trade. A lot of people at first were like, no, we lost that trade. All those first round picks. No one's even on the Raiders anymore, or they're hurt, or they're not living up to the potential that they are. And I agree. First round picks, I feel like they're already walking into $1 million endorsement deals. They don't care as much like that first year, but you get second round pick guys like Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet, Eddie Jackson in the fourth round, James Daniels in the second round, and you end up being really good players. Kevin White could have been a great wide receiver. At the time, from scouting reports, he was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the next big wide receiver in the NFL. And unfortunately, like any other person, like Kyle Long, injuries took over his career. You can't blame a GM for injuries. That's just it. You can't. And the fact that people do blame him for swinging and missing, I have to disagree with. I think Ryan Pace is the best GM that since I've been around, 24 years. I'm sure you would probably say the same. I'm not going with Jerry Angelo. I'm not going with Phil Emery. Phil Emery, sure, he brought in Julius Peppers, Chester Taylor. I think he brought in Martellus Bennett. Sure, that's it. He didn't do anything else. He created salary cap issues. He brought in Shea McClellan. Where did that guy even end up at? I mean, he went to Baltimore and was on the practice squad. How do you go from a first round pick to a practice squad guy within 5 years? It's, mind blowing to me. Absolutely. And I know Kevin White did the same thing, but he had injuries. Shea McClellan was just a bad player. And, he was great in college at Boise State, but I don't know. I think I'm with you. You and I, we think Ryan Pace, if you look at the numbers, you look at everything, you look at the type of franchise that he's built, Ryan Pace is a good general manager. And if, he gets the boot, it's because Nagy's also getting the boot. But if McCaskey sat down with Pace and said, I'm giving you one more head coach, I think Pace could get it done. I think Nagy, that's just my long rant. But London, I know you got something to say about it too. And I know we're running low on time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I 100% agree. And I think that if we land Russell Wilson, which I have seen a lot of people out there who were saying that they're insiders and that the Bears threw out a big, pick the last 36 hours, blah, blah, or a package last 36 hours. Listen, unless you can tell me what's in that package, I don't believe you because honestly, unless you're like somebody like Colin Cowherd, who actually has insider, talks, and he didn't even know what the package was or what's in it. So they're not really talking too much. I'm going with 4 first round picks. I think Akeem Hicks is out the door. I honestly, weirdly enough, just from Pete Carroll, his big thing is he loves rebuilding teams. He rebuilt USC. He rebuilt, the Seattle Seahawks, took him to 2 Super Bowls. I think he's okay with getting rid of Russell Wilson. And honestly, on the Flip side of that, if Ryan Pace can land Khalil Mack and then a couple of years later land Russell Wilson, I think he goes down as the best GM we've had in probably more than a decade.
I agree.
I agree. And honestly, for all the Bears fans out there, my fellow Bears fans, I love every single one of you. For all of them who are out there tweeting and did tweet about how much they hated Ryan Pace and how we should get rid of him, the moment we land somebody like Russell Wilson or honestly Deshaun Watson, if that happens, even though I don't like it, we won't hear a peep.
Yeah,
we won't hear a single peep. Everybody will be like,
yeah,
they'll be like, Ryan Pace, we'll buy your house, we'll buy your car, you're eating for free everywhere.
And then you lose opening day. Get rid of him! Get rid of him! The whole
team. That's optimism. That is Chicago
Bears
optimism right there.
Oh my God. I couldn't agree more. I think Matt Nagy has swung and missed with his hype as an offensive guru, but Ryan Pace has not swung and missed as a GM overall. But the Mitch Trubisky will haunt him. The not drafting, you get Deshaun Watson a couple years later for 4 first-round picks. You got a guy in him with your first overall pick. No one was taking him. No one was moving up. If you were moving up to get to Watson, that made sense. Yeah. But, I would love to see someone go and take his job and do, the numbers, the scouting. I mean, he was at Trevor Lawrence's pro day. Pace is all in for a quarterback. It's going to happen, whether it's a guy like Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson, or a guy like Russell Wilson, or Deshaun Watson. It's going to happen. We're not going to swing and miss on this. If we do, we're having a much different conversation about Ryan Pace moving forward.
I agree. But, so just for all the Twitter people, I'm going 4 first-round picks, Akeem Hicks, Kyle Fuller. That's what I think. What about you? Before we close out, what is your trade package for either Russell Wilson or Deshaun? Because I honestly don't think they'll be much different.
I'm sticking with Allen Robinson going out the door. We talked about this being a super stacked draft class of wide receivers. You got a guy like Darnell Mooney now. You have wide receivers hitting the market. I believe Fuller from the Texans is officially on the market, has worked with Deshaun Watson. So that would be great if that worked out. Could definitely get him cheaper than Allen Robinson, in my opinion. Yeah. But, I'm going 3 first-round picks. That's the max I'm willing to give up. If they give up 4, I'm not the GM. I'm just a fan. But 3 first-round picks, 1 second-round pick next year. Keep our second this year because we're in win-now mode. We need to keep that. We need to keep assets for this year. Also, we have those extra 2 six-round picks, so you could trade up with a 4th and get a 3rd or another 2nd. So 3 first-round picks, 1 second-round pick, Allen Robinson, and Kyle Fuller. And honestly, I think we could end up getting something back in return, like a sign-in trade with Fuller and the Texans, or we could get, crazy enough to say it, if we trade Allen Robinson, like why not throw Tyler Lockett in there and then throw Akeem Hicks in too? You're giving up a lot, but the Bears still have a Super Bowl defense. They have a Super Bowl offense now because they do have a good wide receiver, a good mentor wide receiver, and then they can go out and draft a guy. So 3 first, 1 second. Allen Robinson, Kyle Fuller, and or Akeem Hicks for a quarterback and receiver. That's where I'm at.
Love it.
All right. That was a lot. And by the way, before this, we were saying 15 minutes. We went on for 30. So thank you very much for listening. We're going to wrap up. So my name is Nick Roti with my co-host, London Beth. Another great conversation as always, London. Super happy. Hopefully we get this big quarterback. Thank you for joining, and go Bears.